Let's have a look at the advantages of product lines before we look at the disadvantages or the cost of them. Now, the product line offers considerable advantages. The improvements in cost, time to market, productivity that come with a product line can be considerable. We have some examples there. Cummins Inc., who make diesel engines, they're not primarily a software developer, they were able to reduce the time it takes to produce the software for a diesel engine from about a year to a week. And you kind of think of a diesel engine and think, how much software is in that? Well, evidently there's enough to take a year to develop it and get it right. If you're going to do that for each new variety of engine, then you've got a significant bill there for the development. But if you can make a product line out of it, then, as I say, it comes down from a year to a week. Now that has got to be attractive to anybody. Motorola observed that 400% productivity improvement in a family of one-way pages. So they just looked at the pages and said, well, hang on a bit, we've got a family of these things, and what's the same about them? What can we do with the software that's the same? Hewlett-Packard, time to market reduced by a factor of 7 and product increased by a factor of 6 for a family of printer systems. And in case you think it's all to do with products for which you sell millions, here we go. A family of satellite ground control systems that were commissioned by the US National Reconnaissance Office reports the first product requiring 10% of the expected number of developments having 90% fewer defects. Okay, so they developed this product line and went to go on to build satellites or satellite ground control systems at about 10% the cost with 90% fewer defects. Now, what makes product lines work? Well, the essence of a product line is the disciplined strategic reuse of assets in producing a family of products. What makes them succeed so spectacularly from the vendor or developer's point of view is that the commonality shared by the products can be exploited through reuse to achieve production economies. Now, the potential for reuse is broad and far-ranging, and there's a whole list that goes for multiple slides, so we'll talk through them. Requirements. Now, if you're talking a product line, a bulk of the requirements are going to be the same. Now, it takes time and effort to get the requirements, to fill out the dependencies between the requirements, to review the requirements, and to express them well. Now, once you've got a good set, well, if you can reuse them, it saves you the cost of doing it all over again, doesn't it? Architectural design. This is a fairly big savings, because if you can devise an architecture that can support a product line, then you've got the basic architecture there, and all you have to do is design variations on it. So that can be a significant saving, given that a good architecture for a complex product can take a lot to develop. Elements. Software elements that are applicable across individual products, more than just code reuse. We're talking about the initial design work, design successes are captured and reused, dead ends are avoided. So how far down this goes to actual reused, completed pieces of code is something on the continuum. But we'll start with the design. If we have a design that's something that works well, we can re-implement that design and expect it to work equally well, provided we don't do something completely contrary to the design. Something you may not think of is the modeling and analysis. One of the very difficult things of many software products is to try and model them to prove that they work. Now, this can be a significant exercise, particularly in dealing with things that have to be reliable, where they're life critical, or in some other way they have to work in unanticipated circumstances. Now, in those circumstances, modeling the system so that you can explore its properties under different circumstances becomes a big exercise. If you can recycle that, that's great. Now, that's part of what you can do with a product line. More about what that makes them work, the testing. Your test plans, obviously you built the thing, but now you've got to test it. So all your test plans, your accumulated wisdom about what to test and what not to test, and where the bugs are likely to be, and where you found them last time, and what's been changed. Project planning, let's not discount that. It can take quite a considerable effort to get a project right, and you run through it once and of course find all the things don't work. You can feed that back into correct your project plan, and if you can recycle that corrected project plan, you potentially are making things just so much better, and you're improving things all the time. Processes, methods and tools, recycling those. Now, although you might think, well, they're the same, they're not. They're like project plans. They change each time, and they change depending on the circumstances and the constraints on them as well. So if you can recycle the processes, the methods, the tools, that's to your advantage. Some more things, people. It takes a lot of effort to learn how to do something once. And if you can get the same people building the second one, they're probably fairly familiar with it and they know what to expect. Now, some people actually like working on new problems and they get bored with doing it a second time. Other people are pretty happy about it because they want to just get it right. And some people just like to work on the familiar. Now, within all that, people do improve their effort second time around. So if you have the same team working on the same product for a second or third time, you can expect that they will actually do it a little bit better within the limits of humans' ability to pay attention. You also have an exemplar system. If you're building the second one, you can look at the first one and say, well, that's what it's supposed to look like. That's what it's supposed to behave like. That's what it's supposed to do. So you've got one there as a known demonstration where you can say, well, it's going to be like that, except slightly different. And defect elimination. One of the big paybacks in repeated software systems, product line systems or second and third release of systems, is the reduction in defects, because you are removing the defects out of the system all the time. So the second version of something won't have the defects that were there in the first version, and the theory is that you'll get better and you'll produce less defects each time. Now, how about the cost of developing a product line? So far the advantages sound pretty overwhelming, and it's easy to say, well, look, everybody ought to do it, but there are costs. The first few cost more, and this is because you have to actually build things into the system. It has to be generalized and generalizable. That takes more effort. It takes more, it takes more to put that in a product. And you have all the cost of designing for the general case. Designing a product line is not, it takes a bit of it. You start recovering costs after about the third product in the same line. So, in other words, it's not worthwhile going to the effort of developing a product line if you only expect ever to build one or two. That's just not useful. But the other problem is you've got higher maintenance costs. And this is because any one product has got more in the product that needs to be kept, coherent and true to its design than you actually need. So you're paying a cost of the generality in the specific circumstances. Now, they can fail. You can get a company to say, well, we're going to build a product line because we built 2 of these and we expect to build about another 5, so why don't we sort it out so we can build them all with some commonality. And this has happened. They incur extra cost to achieve that generality, and somebody has to bear that cost. Often you get that somebody can back up and say, no, I'm not going to bear that cost. I only want, I want to pay the cost that I need to pay. If you want to get some economic benefit out of it, well, you can pay for it. There are other factors. It takes... If you're going to go from a single production, that's called bespoke production, custom production, then the product owner can come in and basically change things around as they wish, or the customer can change things around as they wish. As soon as you start developing a product line, that ability to change things and request changes, order changes, and basically play about with the system, that has to stop. There is a limit to how much you can do that. And as a consequence, in order to do that, usually the development team will need somebody with a certain amount of organizational power to be able to stop it. So you need a product champion or a product line champion. Without one of those, as with so many things, you are fighting against some very powerful people who really do want things to go their way. Organizations can take fright. As I say, the first one costs a bit more, and the organization can say, whoops, we didn't expect that, well, we better just go back to what we know works and just kill the whole effort. So an organization can sabotage its own efforts to build a product line. There can also be failure due to failing to identify the business goals, the business drivers, and you really need to do that because it's the business goals and drivers that you can hold as, here, this is what we're achieving. Just bear with us and we'll get the goals later. So we're talking about deferred satisfaction. Organizations, as I said before, frequently just abandon the whole thing at the first sign of difficulty, and there is frequently, if you don't train up the development staff to say, look, this is what we're doing and why we're doing it, and we have to do things differently, then the development staff will continue to think that they can just go and implement as they please, because that's what they've been able to do. And when you have a product line, you have to have a certain amount of change control, for want of a better term, centralized control of design changes and product changes. And sometimes this is not within the habits of the people who normally do it, and if they're not taught otherwise, they probably would just go off the rails. So the summary then for the benefits. The cost of developing product line architecture are immediate, but the benefits are in the future. The return on investment depends on variation. More variation reduces the potential return. So there does come a time when, okay, yes, it's the same, but there's so much variation that we're better off developing each one anew. The original development costs are amortized over multiple instances of the product, usually 3 or more. And product line development does require organizational commitment. Without that commitment, you probably won't manage to get the full product line developed. Customers can only be offered features that you've anticipated, basically. So that can be a bit of a problem for customers. However, the benefits in terms of speed, economics, are so overwhelming that so many people do still go for a product line.